Hi everyone, I'm Siris Rivas-Verdejo and you're here for Choosing a Different Future show. Thanks so much for checking in with us today. I have one of my best friends, Matt Lostaglia, here on the show. And not only is he one of my best friends in the world, and I'm very grateful I have many best friends, he actually happened to be one of my fiancés. Yes, I have more than one. And so he's an ex-fiance. It's been multiple lifetimes at this point. At least it certainly feels that way for us. And yet we have managed to stay friends. We create a lot of things together. We're definitely involved in each other's lives. I get to hang out with him and his three beautiful children. Hi, for those that when you guys watch later on. Yeah, just adore his kids and what he's creating in the world. Would love to let you know about some of his creations. It's pretty freaking amazing. You'll get why I wanted to marry him at some point, right? He's very much a charming gentleman. And at the same time, there's a lot of things I'm still constantly discovering about him. And so I'm very curious to see what's going to show up in our conversation today. One of the really big aspects of our friendship is these conversations. We chat and talk a lot about everything, everywhere we go. And he has this really great podcast that he just started recently called Burn Your Boats. And if you haven't heard of it yet, please check it out. We'll give you all of the information for it below here as well. And maybe Matt can let us know where some places that you can find it. But it's a whole different take. And it's something that I always knew he was going to create. We just weren't sure what it was going to be called, how it showed up. And it's how it got created, and even its name and how it actualized in the world has been this really nonlinear creation. It's been pretty awesome. So please welcome Matt Lostaglia.
Thank you so much. That was a more than gracious introduction. I appreciate that.
Though the other thing too that I didn't mention is that you're in the Army as well. So we're catching you right now in kind of like your lunch break. So thanks for squeezing us in. Really appreciate it. This has been a long time coming. We've been wanting you on the show, and I'm really glad that we're actually able to coordinate this.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm definitely you look way better than I do right now. I'm in my work shirt and stuff. Took the jacket off at least.
Yeah.
But no, the timing worked out well for us to be able to do it, and I'm really excited to be here.
So tell us about your show, the Burn Your Boats. How did the idea of it come about? What's it about? Because one of the things that I find interesting is that when we first were talking about something that you would do as a podcast, you were kind of debating about maybe it being more of a political podcast, something with politics and about history. You love history. And is that in your show? And what is actually the themes within it?
So that's a great question. So the original intent with the show was very political minded. I find myself on a libertarian bent of things, and so I really wanted, and I feel like it's an underspoken kind of thought process, but it feels like everything stays at the kind of federal level and everything with that. And so I was trying to find a unique way to do it. And so I was kind of looking into local politics, but being so transient and being in the military, I find myself just shifting, physical locations all the time. Yeah. So it's hard I could go back to my hometown and try to do politics based out of there, but that didn't feel right because I haven't lived there in a decade. And so It didn't feel true, or like I would be the best voice to bring these things up, even if I'm reading the news and everything every day. And so I kept trying to looking for ways to make it work. And it never fit. The energy never aligned correctly in that vein of things. And it was a little disheartening, to be honest, because it's a big passion of mine, and it matters to me a lot. But as time progressed, I progressed as a person, and realizing what is it that I actually want to do, and what was the purpose of the show? Was it to try to convert people? Was it try to relay information? And so really what I realized, and it's a saying that I think is pretty predominant now, in that politics is downstream of culture, right? And culture is downstream of the individual. So that's the way that I kind of view the world. And so I don't want to attack or approach a conversation on like the third rung of the ladder. Like I want to start at the first one. Like how do we get to the individual, and what kind of changes do I want to see in the world and for people on an individual level to increase happiness, increase abundance, increase freedom in their personal lives. And so you were a huge inspiration in what you do and how you live your life for the shift to where the show got to eventually, and where at the point where I felt the amazing energy behind it and really wanting to like feeling like there was enough value there to be able to push out to people where it can actually change somebody's life. So burn your boat. You're amazing. You're amazing. And it has to do with your the entrepreneurship and everything that you endeavor into. Like you're running like 10 different ventures simultaneously, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. And through you and through my own personal adventures, I've been able to meet some of the most amazing people that are doing similar things. But
you also had many of them in your life before you met me. Like I've met your friends and family and your contacts, and not all of them, but many of them. And it's one after the other. I'm like, holy cow, where are these people coming from? These are amazing. So
I know. And I look at it and I feel so blessed to have these people in my life. And once I realized, like after the whatever umpteenth conversation that I had with a different person, just like the same way that you and I have had many amazing conversations.
Many.
And I both have those with so many people. And I thought, there's so much here. There's so much information and energy and excitement and potential motivation that it would be great to be able to capture that and to send it out to people, and and if it fits and it feels right, follow along with it, and it's great. And so that's what I do is I take business owners, and typically small business owners and entrepreneurs, and I bring them on. And where the energy of the show really started was it was all based around fear and like the overcoming of that fear, especially for people like your story was like the perfect profile for what I was trying to do, because you had been in the public school system and you had to make this big shift out of it. And there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of obstacles, and both internal and external. And so being able to dive into those with people, like what were the impacts of the other people in your life on you and what they were saying when you were thinking about this transition, and then what are your own internal demons, and like, so because everyone has those. You're working in a 9 to 5, and if you're inspired, you're like, I've always wanted to own my own restaurant or something of the sort. How many obstacles do we put up in our own way that keep us from accomplishing or even just pursuing, taking positive action towards those dreams and goals? And so I felt like highlighting those in these people's stories, bringing that to the forefront and showing the people that have that inclination but haven't taken action, that the people that are successful in doing it aren't different. They're like, they didn't not deal with fear. Like it was there. And this is the way that this person managed it. This is the way this person, some people had significantly less. They were just like, yeah, I was young and dumb. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm like, and that's great. And it's a beautiful thing. And then, but you talk to some of the people that are a little bit more advanced in their career, and it goes back to burn your boats. Like basically that 9 to 5, that security in that job is your boat. And that's what I'm asking people to do, is to look at that safety net, look at that boat. And the longer that you're in it, the more that you kind of fortify it. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to add some windows over here. And I'm going to make it like things are going to be nice and easy. And I'm not going to have to deal with a lot of points where I have to engage courage because I'm comfortable. And so we get stuck in that comfortable pattern of life. So it seems like a hard bargain, but I'm asking people to embrace difficulty and embrace the fear and take it head on, because you'll never know what you could have accomplished if you don't run into the fire, if you don't put yourself out there and actually try to accomplish something different, than what most people are willing to do.
So I'm wondering then, why is it that you're not asking them to just rock their boat, to continue with that metaphor,
Well,
good analogy, instead of completely destroy it, like burn their boats? Like, what's the difference for you in that show, and what have you seen your guests talk about with that?
so so from personal, my own experience in the military is really, really good at indoctrinating people, and then once you have this large group of people that are indoctrinated and that you're working with, and you've been in for a significant amount of time, then you get all of those external things like we had talked about, where people are like, oh, well, you can't do that, like you're not going to be able to, like, we'll see you back here, like you're going to get out, and then in a year and a half when you don't make it, you're going to come re-enlist back again. um
Mm-hmm. It
what
kind of
I
sounds
think,
like gaslighting.
no, it very much is.
Yeah.
It very much is. And I mean, to some point, like, and you see it happen. Like I
Yeah.
know people that have gotten out and come back in. So like there is a reality to what they're saying, but it's unfortunate that we're not, as a community, we're not more uh invigorated to empower people to get out, because
Yeah.
no matter what, even if you do a full 20 years, or you do 25 or 30 years, you retire, it's unlike, in order to maintain your same standard of living while you're in, is when you get out, like you're gonna have to work. And if you
Yeah.
don't understand how to be successful in the world and how to work in the private sector, you might have a hard time, because not all the jobs translate. Most jobs don't translate at all. But to that point, so for me, and more to the point of your question, is it's easy to it's harder to really put yourself fully in like the correct mindset to really engage and pursue that new passion the same way that you would, like, if that's the only thing and like that's going to be your source of income, like your motivation to focus on what moves the needle, focus on what actually makes you money, focus on what creates value for others, it's going to be so much greater than if you have this safety net. If you're sitting there like, well, I mean, my car bill's paid, and my mortgage is paid,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm good. And so like, yeah, when I have extra time, I'll put it towards it. And some people can manage. Some people can manage both, and they can do one and really dive into the other. But it's kind of human nature. Like, you're battling against our own nature to work both of those angles. And I feel like acknowledging ourselves as the emotional beings that we are, justifying everything logically, that you have to take that into consideration if you're serious
You
about
want to
it. And
make
it's
sure your bills are paid. You want to make sure all that's done. But it sounds like what you're saying more and more, that it's actually like committing to this new adventure, instead of being like, oh well, this is like a plan B, instead of this is plan A. This is plan like
exactly.
number one. I'm committing to my freedom. I'm committing to this possibility. I'm committing to what I know I'd really like to create in the world and have as my life, no matter even if I have this other thing going on. So if to burn your boat, it's like maybe to burn like whatever limitation that's stopping you from actually completely committing to
Yeah,
this
because
whatever you'd like your life to be like. And it might
yeah.
be this, like for instance with you with the podcast, it could be the podcast, but it's not really about the podcast. It's about you committing to creating your life outside of the military and beyond that, and actually it being on your terms from our
Absolutely.
conversations instead of being dictated by anyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, your boat can be anything, and it can be multiple things. You could have multiple boats that you're
What is that
tethered to.
called? Like the whole, like not crew. What is
Like a
that? What is?
fleet.
There you go.
Yeah,
Fleet.
I'm not even in the Navy. Check me out.
Like maybe the show starts with burn your boats and then it becomes burn your fleet. Like,
Ooh, I like it. I like it. We'll do a chapter. We'll do a chapter on burn your fleet.
so
No,
how
I mean,
did
because
this
it could be
actually show up
anything.
for you though? Like with what boats did you have to burn to even consider actualizing the podcast that you're creating?
So one of the things, which it wasn't even directly connected in my head at the time, but one of the things was my marriage. And it was a complete comfort zone. Like, I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd be with my wife and kids, and we'd sit down and we'd watch TV every night. And it was this fatal repetition and turning into somewhat of a like a partnership, like, and that sounds good, it sounds like a good thing, but it's like it was more like a domestic partnership than it was like let's take on the world together, you know. And I can't, and I like, it was never there's so much to that, so I'm not going to dive a whole heck of a lot into
I
that.
think our
But
viewers can get the gist. Yeah.
yeah, so that was a huge thing that kind of set me up, because then I would get off of work and I'd come back to my own place where I am alone. You know, I get the kids every other week. And so when I get home, it's like, what are you going to choose to do now? What are you going to choose to create? Like, what now? It's so easy to quantify and to hold myself accountable to the things that I'm actually spending my time on, because I can't be like, oh, well, I'm doing quality time with the wife, or I'm doing this, and I can justify not pursuing this because I spent all day at work, and then when I get home I need to make sure to dedicate time to these people. And I just finding that right balance, and now I can see, I can lay it all out and be like, okay, I'm going to spend an hour, you know, like trying to book in the next interview, you know, reaching out to people, finding new businesses that open up in the area and reaching out to them. Cold calling is a whole new thing for me, and I've been doing it and with some amazing success though. Like, it's especially, there's an energy that comes with new business owners, and that's why like I've based like some search algorithms around businesses that are just opening, because they're still like really passionate about what they're doing. Not to say that somebody that's been in business a long time isn't, but there's this like fresh new energy that's there. And so when they have someone reach out to them that says, hey, I see what you're doing and I want to talk to you about it, like, tell me your story, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's do that. And so that's
Well, the
it's
other thing too that sounds like is like you're having to push yourself out of your comfort zone continuously to keep expanding your projects, to see, like, it's not like, okay, I have one interview or a couple interviews and now I'm done. Like, you're constantly either finding new contacts through the people that you're interviewing, or you're following up and calling these new people, like you said. And not everyone's necessarily willing to do that, because each time it's kind of a roll of the dice. It's kind of a risk that you're putting yourself out there. And yet, you know, one of the conversations that we've had a lot is like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. Like, that's it. Like, oh, and some people, if you're willing to hear no, it's amazing what shows up, because most people don't say no, but we assume
well, and even if they do,
they will.
even if you reach out to 10 people and one person says yes, like the amount of value, even just for myself, that I'm going to derive from that conversation with the person, because I mean, it's incredible. Like, every single person that I've talked to it's just added another piece to me. You know, like I like extract part of their energy, and I'm like, oh my, and their story and how it is they overcame the obstacles in their life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's possible too. And that's possible. And that's possible. Like, what isn't possible? I don't know. People are proving, you know, that they can overcome all of these things on this consistent basis. And the one of the most important and key factors to it is when you hear how they fell on their face. Like, they were doing this thing and they tried and it just completely failed. And then they got up, and there's always a mourning period. And for every person, it's different. For some people, it was like, oh yeah, 3 days later, then, you know, I got my next LLC up and running. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's incredible.
What you do?
Ain't no thing. So, and other people, it's several weeks. Some people, it's months. Some people go back into the system, like into some sort of a system where they're working for somebody else for a couple of years while they kind of rebrand or refigure out like what it is that they want to do. How did they, and they take the time to kind of analyze. So it's interesting. But I had an amazing conversation with this gentleman, Damien Fontaine, who is a Frank Sinatra performer, an amazing voice and an amazing human being. But he talked about exactly that, because he was the first person I'd really talked to in depth about cold calling and his strategy and approach to it. And when he talked about getting no's, like, and receiving those no's back, which he got a lot of, he's like, at the end of it, you know, like I've got 10 fingers, I've got 10 toes, I can walk around, I can still do my thing. Like, so, and like, it's everything in life is a choice, including the way that you react and respond to things. Like,
Absolutely.
you may have a visceral gut reaction to something. Like, obviously getting denied is not fun. Nobody enjoys the no, but you can account for that, and you can choose your reaction. Like, okay, like that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, we weren't supposed to sit down and have a conversation, at least at this time. And it's actually amazing, the people, especially after you start getting out there and you
Yeah.
get your name out there and keep taking action. That's the biggest thing, is just taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping your head up and your eyes open to the opportunities around you. Like, for me, I'm in the business of talking to people. And so if I'm sitting around in my apartment 5-6 days a week, all of those days are opportunities that I'm missing out of. And I don't have to be going out looking for somebody. Like, they find me. I swear to God. Like, I'm out. I'll be going out and getting some drinks at a hotel, like top roof bar. I remember this one time recently, and there was a gal there who was singing and playing guitar and some other instrument that was really freaking cool. I don't know what it was. She played violin too. She had like a bunch of stuff. And I just went up to her after the show, and I was like, "Oh my God, I just started asking her questions. Like, you're so amazing. How long have you been playing?" And she was like, "Oh, I've been doing this." And I was like, "Where do you go?" And she's like, "Here, here." And I was like, "You seem really interesting." I was like, "I have this thing going on. I like to talk to people. Like, would you be interested?" She's like, "Absolutely. I'd love to be on your show." And it's just stuff like that. But that opportunity, it's like, some people will look at that and say, "Oh, you're lucky. Like, you're lucky that you met somebody who was willing to talk to you and sit down and have these conversations." And maybe a one-off, I might agree, but the consistency in which it happens, you start to look at the events that actually take place leading up to that conversation, and it's about putting yourself
along the way.
Exactly. It's about the choices and how you put yourself in the position to be lucky. And I really feel like luck begets luck. And so, like, you keep putting yourself out. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, sometimes the timing doesn't.
I met you when you were first still thinking about it, and it wasn't time. You weren't. All these things had to be chosen and lined up, and then this was the time. And then it's gone so much faster and easier given all those choices along the way.
Oh my gosh.
That created the platform for you to have it now. Just piggybacking off a little bit about what you said about the timing and the luck and all of that. I mean, I think one of the key things that you may or may not want to acknowledge that makes you a bit different is that you get that your choices create your life, and your lack of choices when you choose not to do something also create something, but not everyone gets that.
Yeah.
And so actually being willing to choose what's going to provide more of a sense of freedom for you, that generative creative energies where you feel like, oh, okay, cool. Like, this is going to be really fun for me to do. This is what's going to lead me to wherever. This is the life that I really like. And it's me and my taking action, and like, that creates that. Like, one of the things that you were saying about going and having drinks at the rooftop of the hotel, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's literally like, I just get the awareness, I just need to get out of my house. Because literally there are everybody I meet, there's so many people I could meet out there, but I won't meet them if I'm in my house just ruminating and wondering or judging myself or, analyzing. Sometimes it's just like, get out of your house, let's see who you meet. And it might not be that who you meet is who's going to be on your show or who's going to lead to clients or who's going to create business. It might just be that person who leads to the other person who leads to the other person, like 3 people away.
Yeah.
But it's still that initial choice to get out of your house and commit to your life that really led to all of that other things that shows up. And you do that over and over again. We've had those conversations where we're both like, dude, I just want to be here, and honor that. Like, sometimes you need to rest too. You need to honor your body. And there's those, okay, I did that. Cool. Now what's going to create the life I really would like?
Yeah. Sometimes in order to create the life that you would really like, those moments of solitude or those moments of those nights of rest or whatever are required, in order to go, because you can push it and you can go out there and like everything. I feel like in order to create abundance, moderation in your life is actually required and discipline in your life is actually required. One of the things that you really like you dove into not too long ago was the power of silence. And it's not like you should spend 24 hours in complete silence. I mean, you could. And I know there are silent retreats that go for months. And like that's something I would love to play around with. But on a regular basis, you I'd really just like more for like the experience sake. Like what would that
not for me. I was literally just talking about it with Sailor, my creation assistant and colleague and just really good friend. And she was like, would you like to go to silent retreat with me? And I was like, that sounds like hell on earth. And yet that's probably exactly what I need to do. If I have this much of a resistance to it, that's probably exactly what is going to expand my world. And so we were talking about that.
I wonder what it would create. I wonder what, yeah. Anxiety right now.
No, it's not even anxiety. It's just like, yeah. So, but that's what cold calls used to be for me. It would be like, and then I learned that too. I had to call, and I didn't have to. I chose to call, and I chose. Some people, it's like not even cold. It'd be like lukewarm. Like I haven't talked to someone in a while.
Yep.
And they're so grateful just to have that connection, the check-ins, that kind of a thing. And when you're traveling as much as I do in the go, where you're creating a lot of things, sometimes you would like to just veg out and rest and not always be calling people, because you spend so much time talking to people. And yet you go to that question that you just asked, what would it create if I do? What would it create if I don't? And a lot of times it's a lot like, okay, it's going to create more if I just, even if it's just one or two people today, let me check in with them. And then you feed off of that gratitude. You're like, oh my gosh, they're so lit up to hear from me. And I'm so happy to talk to them. Okay. I'm really glad I did that.
No, absolutely. And that's, and the thing that I would warn people, like when I was talking about moderation, you can use that as a justification. Like, oh, well, I did a bunch of work yesterday, so tonight I'm just gonna relax. Like, no, no. Just no, like
that's not what you mean with moderation. Okay,
you gotta dig in, like to the point. I don't know, when you're passionate about something, and you find the thing that like it's hard to see the future of your life without this thing a part of it, without this energy being a part of it, and moving forward with that. One, you're drawn to take the action towards it. Yeah. And so, but with it, like with anything in the world, there are aspects of the podcast and talking with people and getting everything set up that I hate. Like I can't stand it. And I'm like, oh my God, can someone like,
can I just one? Like what's one of those things?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, can I just make millions of dollars so I can outsource this part of this crap to somebody else? But in the meantime, like, there's also a part of it where 100% of everything that I do is me. 100% of the failure that comes from it is mine. And it's from the choices that I made to either not recognize the lack of movement or the lack of connection that it's making with people. That's on me. On the flip side, 100% of the success, every person that it touches and they get motivated by it, anybody that it reaches, even the people that I'm interviewing, like after every interview, everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so motivated right now. Like I'm going to go out and create. Like that wouldn't happen without me. And acknowledging that is significant. And it's hard to do. It's even hard to do now. It's more like a point to put it out there to people, to own it, because when you take that step into entrepreneurship or into business ownership, or even if it's not anything like that definitive in those aspects of your life, when you choose to take control and ownership of what you're doing, then the rewards that you reap from that are immense, whether good or bad. They're immense,
Well, and the other part of it too is that, especially the things that you acknowledge that are creating more, like you get to have more of that faster and faster and faster. You're willing to perceive the people that it actually lines up for you to meet up with them and talk with them or create with them, and those that you're not. Like you get You're like, you build up that muscle of like,
Yep.
what's going to create and what's not, what's going to create what I'd like and what's not, what's actually going to contribute to me. Like I had someone where we tried multiple times to schedule an interview and it just didn't work. And finally we were both like, maybe just now isn't the time, but we still are inspiring each other. We're still in touch. And we know now, given those experiences with a couple people, I know now to not force it.
Yeah.
That's not the time for that. But then the other person that, like, instead of me using the energy toward that, now I redirected it somewhere else and whoa, flow, move really, really fast.
Exactly. Yeah,
now, I have a question for you though with that.
Bring it.
Okay. So you're taking on this new venture and you're still, you're fully in the military as well. You're working in intelligence, which is, not, there's a lot of different aspects of the military from what little I know. And yet that's a pretty, full on thing. There's a lot of different aspects of it. You're working with a lot of different people there. And you have, I think, a team, right, of people that you're working with in addition to those like offshoot, more peripheral people in your work. Well, how have they responded to your choosing this new venture? Do all of them know? I guess they're knowing now.
Yeah. No, they know. It was interesting because I talked to like a handful of people that I worked directly with about it, just because it kind of came up naturally as I'm spending so much time doing it. Like when you get to work, you're talking about like, oh, hey, what'd you do this weekend? I was like, oh, well, I went up to Hilton Head and then I went over to Savannah. I went down over to this place and I went to Pooler. And they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm talking to these people. I'm recording, I'm starting a podcast. And they're like, what? Like, and so I talked to them about it and they were all like, that makes a lot of sense. Like for you, especially, like go get it. And so that was cool. I got a very positive response from the people that I communicate with on a regular basis. The interesting part was once I started publishing out the episodes, like the connections of people that were seeing it and then like seeking me out to talk to me about it. Like I have this lieutenant colonel that I've worked with for 2 years now, and I wasn't even friends with him on Facebook or any social media or anything. And he came up, he's actually getting ready to leave to go I thought he was going to take command of a unit, but he's going to go do another job at a different place. But he came up and he was like, dude, your show. And I was like, what? And he was like
this thing you're doing like that. Yeah.
he's like, dude, it's really good. And I'm like, really? He's like, and I was like, do you listen to podcasts? He's like, yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I was like, oh, and so like in the scheme of those or in relation to those, like you would listen to it on like a regular. He's like, yeah, man, I've already listened to like all of the episodes. And I was like, oh my God, like that's incredible. You're amazing. I appreciate that. And so even from the people that I don't necessarily communicate with on a regular basis or people that are, like you said, in more of those peripheral positions, the response has been phenomenal. Like I couldn't have asked for a more supportive group of people around me, asking questions and following up. It's been wonderful.
But I remember like a year ago when it was still germinating, when you're still like, I wonder what this is going to be, blah, blah, blah. And you would do some Facebook lives every once in a while. And I'm like, all right, do more. People are asking for more. And people were like, dude, when is your show going to be out? They were already asking for your show. So you had all the audience queued up. And that's the other part about the timing is it's like you created your show very differently than mine and continue to. And it's really cool to see what similarities they have and what differences that they have. And one of the things that I really liked that you did was that you kind of let it brew. You kind of let that interest brew a lot more before you launched. And even as you're doing your weekly launches, because it does, you have a lot of them in pieces or each of the interviews. I know that I was on Matt's show. He gave me the honor of being his first interview, which I really appreciated. And we talked for so long that he cut it up into like 3 segments.
We recorded in 3, and then I merged all 3 together, and then I broke it down back into 2. So a lot of fun editing time, but it was really cool because our interview had been sitting in my queue for months. Like I just published the first episode. It was the beginning of June, and we
Yeah.
recorded like on St. Patty's Day or right
Right
like
around there. It was March. Yeah.
so there were months, and so I went back and listened to our like 2.5 almost 3 hour conversation like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like every time I found new gems like, oh my god, that was amazing, oh my god, that was really cool. There is like I would love to go
That's
live.
just how we do, you know.
Yeah, but it's amazing, like because of the way that I do it now, being able to go back and listen to the conversations I had. I'm like, oh my god, that's right, we talked about that. Like I forgot. But one of the interesting things about the show, and like you said, letting it brew and everything, the show didn't have a name, and I was on episode 15, recording the 15th interview, still didn't have a name. Like I had actually reached out to you and it was brainstorming with you. I was like, I need her energy right now. Like I need like this goes back to the conversations that we have. Like and this is one of the things that I love about what we've been able to create with our relationship post the engagement is we're still facilitating each other's, growth and businesses and everything, and participating when it makes sense and when it feels right. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. And it's a blessing to have in my life. So thank you for, being you and doing what you do.
Right back at you, my friend. Right back at you.
And yeah, it was that interview. It was the 15th interview with a good friend of mine, Kelly Kroll. And it wasn't even during the interview. It was like we had like another one of our conversations that you and I have, where it's like the interview went 3 hours and we continued to talk for like another 3 hours off air about the show.
You and her, yeah.
Yep. And she had brought up the expression burn the ships. And I was like, oh, what's
there's something there.
Yeah, tell me more. And she did, and then she shared an article with me kind of like about the history of it, and it was phenomenal. It was a guy, I'm trying to remember, I think his last name was Cruz. He came with a crew over to it was Cortez, and he went to Veracruz with a crew of guys on his ship, and they landed, and it was like cold and crappy, and everyone was tired, and they were running out of food, and everyone was like, dude, let's go back to the ship and let's go back home because this is not working. And he's like, nope, burn the ship, burn it to the ground. Like we're not I'm removing our escape route, and so we have to be fully present in what we're doing. Like we will succeed. And so it came. I don't know how legitimate that story. It doesn't even matter. Like it could be a fable, and that's fine because the energy of it is correct, and that's exactly what I'm trying to get people to do.
Yeah. And that's what we chose to do with our relationship. That's part of so Matt chose to call off our engagement, and yes, there was this period of at least a month or so where it was particularly challenging for me. And we had all these plans. We had people coming to our wedding and all these, that were going to fly in. And part of what I needed to do, and I don't even think I've ever told you this, is I needed to just destroy all of the stuff that I had planned, that I had expected, that we had projected or whatever, that, all of the different like possible things that we were going to travel to and create together in whatever way that I had looked at it from that point onward. And by burning the boat of our relationship was how I was able to get this awesome other boat show up. That's our friendship right now, that we get to have these conversations, like I said, but also we inspire each other. We cheer each other on when we're traveling, things like that. And there is this ease, and there have been those moments where it's like, okay, let's look at this. And one of the things that I love about our friendship and our dialogue is that we don't avoid the uncomfortable conversations.
No, we more embrace them.
Like lean in. All right.
That's exactly it. And you can't. I don't feel like you can just tell people to do that.
No.
Like, you need to lean into the uncomfortable conversations. But to me, it's like a descriptor, or like it's part of the characteristic of the relationship, and one that is super durable, and that will last for a significant amount of time, if not for the rest of our lives. is based around our ability and willingness to do that, knowing that the other person is going to be receptive and you're in a place not necessarily of like non-judgment. That's so far out the window that it's not even a concern, but you know that you're going to be able to communicate, even if it's something that's like, hey, we had plans and I'm not up for that. I'm not up for doing that with you right
Yeah.
now. And like, you
Yeah.
know what? Like that's totally fine. You know, like, thank you for communicating that with me versus, well, I made a commitment and I told him I was going to be there and we're just going to do it anyway. And then creating, a crap situation, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that
That
will, that,
affects multiple people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And could cascade through future, engagements together. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
so rather than doing that, like, we're more open about it. And so
Yeah.
it's something to acknowledge in your own relationships with your friends and everybody, with anybody that's listening, to look at that and really, like, there's nothing to take action about, but just think about it and be grateful that for those people and identify those ones, because those are amazing. Those are special. Those are not, I don't see that as a standard. It's not a standard relationship that I have with a lot of people. It's something I try to be to the utmost of my ability, is just upfront and honest.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like, hey man, I don't want to go out with you tonight to downtown. Like, I don't
Yeah.
wanna, like, I
Yeah,
don't have
it's
a good
not gonna
reason.
work.
Like,
Well,
I'm
and
not
that
gonna lie
gets
to you.
back to the what we were talking about earlier, and that we had talked about even before we were really dating on any kind of regular basis. It's like we both declared, and we actually like keep honoring, is let's be committed to our lives and our living first and foremost.
Yep.
And so if anything that we're doing together is gonna jeopardize that, we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if you remember that, like even before we were like, okay, this looks like we're actually choosing a relationship together. But we were just dating casually. It was like, oh, okay, let's really, like, this, my business is a priority. My life is a priority. Yours should be too. You're having all these creations. And so if at any point there was this contraction where we saw, oh, this is actually going to create less possibilities for us individually, that's like, let's not do it. And so I remember you calling it off, and I don't know how soon afterwards, how many days afterwards, but there was this moment I clearly remember that I was like, yeah, I'm upset. Yeah, I'm shifting. But thank you so, so much for being brave enough to choose this now and not after we got married, not after all the family were involved and, the kids are impacted in a certain way. And, because it takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of courage to continually commit to your life. It's not just a one-off choice and then you're done. And you did that in that moment, and you're continuing to do that. And with their show, you're doing that. And it's just, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you. And so, yeah, and the gratitude that you're talking about, like it continues to be there. Like there's no cap to that either. That's one of the things that I've been discovering with all of these creating and this inspiration, is like there's never a limit to how much inspiration and the contribution I can receive from people. Gratitude, and the other way, in the other direction as well. Like, have so much immense gratitude for you now, probably even more than I ever have in the time
Yeah.
that we've
Same.
known each other. And I think that's one of those other characteristics of the friendships that I have, is there is that willingness to be uncomfortable, have those conversations, and also be so grateful for all of it, for the good, the bad, the ugly, the awesome, the fun, the not so fun. Like, and just be like, okay, this is what's showing up. Thank you.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with this now? What am I going to choose now?
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so thank
Well,
you
and
for that.
of course, no, it's been a hell of a roller coaster ride, and it's been a blast, and
Yeah,
it
it
continues to be.
continues.
I love it. I love it. And no, and it really does, like speaking about courage and the importance of it and the choices that you make in life, like I was saying in the beginning, a lot of people position their lives in such a way where they try to remove as much resistance and fearful situations from their life. So if they're scared of public speaking, then they're going to avoid public speaking. If they're scared of heights, they're not going to go skydiving,
Yeah.
But the more that you put yourself in those situations, the more you're flexing that emotional muscle of courage, and the stronger that you get, and the more empowered you are. And so when it comes to very difficult situations where it requires the boatload of courage that you haven't built up, good luck handling it. Like you might surprise yourself and come out, a lot of people, it takes them being pushed into a very tight corner for them to, their inner jaguar to pop out and to lash out and to clear a way out of the alley, and it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. And it's never, it gets easier the more that you do it. Just like I said, it's just like lifting weight, you're flexing.
Easier. And yet it's not any less valuable. It's like because it's still that choice. It's still those pivot moments where you can either choose something that's going to honor you and everyone else involved, or not. And by you choosing off the engagement, you were absolutely not just honoring you, but honoring me and the kids and everyone else that it would have impacted.
Yeah.
So I get that we could talk a lot more. And I would love to talk some more with you. I'm going to talk to you no matter what. I wish someone would try to stop me from talking. But it's like on the show in more official, capacity. I would love to have you back on. I'm so, so grateful for our initial conversation here, for you to be able to carve out this time in your schedule to talk. And for all of you watching now and in the future, if you would like to see more videos with Matt and more shows, episodes on Choosing a Different Future, go ahead and subscribe below. And you can go ahead and post and send questions to Matt. He's going to be on the lookout of that. We'll definitely include his contact information. Maybe you know some folk that would like to be on his show, Burn Your Boats. It's phenomenal. Matt, how can they hear about the show? Where can they find information on it?
So it's published every Friday, and it's should be on most, if not all, of the major podcast mediums, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify. And it's, so if you just search Burn Your Boats, it's the only show on there with the name, so that's helpful. You can find me on Facebook. Right now I'm using my personal Facebook page to publish most of the teasers and previews of the shows and the release dates and everything. That's Matt Lostaglia, Lostaglia. Yeah, there's a G in there. It's real. And so that, and if you search that name on Instagram or on Twitter or on Facebook, I'm there on all of those. I have a website, burnyourboatshow.com, so that's there too. So any of those, you can reach out to me on any of them, and I would love to, especially if you feel like you fit the boat to come on the show. I would love to have a conversation.
I know. I see what
I was like,
probably
wrong. It's probably the wrong word. We're burning boats, right? Wait a minute.
It's alliteration. Fit the bill, something like that. Yeah. Contact Matt.
Yeah, reach out. I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and message us at choosingadifferentfuture.com or choosingadifferentfuture@gmail.com. Whatever works for you with any questions or requests. And we'll make sure to connect you with wherever we need to go. We love connecting people here on the show, as you've noticed. And look forward to talking to you and sometime on a future show, Matt. Again, thank you. And thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye.